Welcome to the Explainer. Look, if you've ever managed a major initiative, you already know it can sometimes feel like trying to herd cats while riding a unicycle. Am I right? We're going to skip the slow, boring introductions today because we urgently need to talk about the chaotic, everyday reality of modern project management. We're going to get this all explained in just about 5 minutes.
So here's the big question right out of the gate. Why do projects constantly fail? Seriously, despite all our advanced software, our agile sprints, those incredible real-time data dashboards, and our massive, colorful Gantt charts, things still manage to completely fall apart. We set out with the absolute best intentions, yet the failure rate across industries is still staggeringly high. It's a real project failure case we have to unpack.
Okay, let's dive into this. Look at this tragic list we pulled directly from the Earned Value Management System standard. It honestly reads like the comic case of project management disasters, doesn't it? You've got process delays, communication black holes, and priorities just wildly shifting back and forth between time and cost. But you know the absolute best part of this tragic list? That last bullet point. The perceived mismatch between performance information and project reality. Honestly, that is just the highly corporate way of saying the status report says everything is green and fine, while the actual project on the ground is literally on fire.
All right, Section 1, Fixing the Reality Mismatch. Let's get into it.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how we fix it. How do we actually bridge this massive gap between abstract reporting and actual project reality? Well, we use the Earned Value Management System loop. Notice how it forms this continuous, unbroken cycle. You don't just, set a plan and walk away hoping for the best. No way. You determine relevance based on real organizational needs. You implement your action following strict change management, and then, and this is absolutely crucial, you gather evidence through self-evaluation and environmental changes. By constantly pulling actual reality back into your reporting, you completely eliminate those blind spots that allow projects to fail quietly.
Moving right along to Section 2, the P5 Framework Explained.
Now here is the catch, guys. Just fixing the schedule and the budget, it isn't enough anymore. Managing time and cost is really just the bare minimum to keep your job. We have to pivot to a macro solution for complex modern challenges, and that is where the P5 impact analysis comes in. This is where we bring together people, planet, prosperity, process, and product. It's this comprehensive assessment method where we actually collect concrete data to truly understand the social, environmental, and economic outcomes of our activities. By assessing all 5 of these Ps, we finally stop looking at projects in a vacuum. Instead, we directly tackle the massive, interconnected challenges of climate change and rapidly shifting stakeholder expectations by systematically reducing those negative consequences.
Now, what's really interesting about this model is how it organizes all that complexity. Because, let's be honest, sustainability can feel incredibly broad and super intimidating, right? But the GPM Leaf model breaks those massive goals down into highly digestible parts. You start way out with a broad competence unit, then you narrow it down to a competence element, and finally, you reach the specific performance criteria. It basically takes the abstract, fuzzy concept of being green and turns it into an actionable, measurable threshold of competence that literally any project manager can follow.
Okay, on to Section 3, Clause Breakdown, specifically looking at procurement.
Let's take this high-level framework and ground it in reality with a practical deep dive into sustainable procurement. Why? Because how you buy things dictates a huge portion of your project's overall impact. And there is a stark contrast between just planning and actual enforcement. Look at Clause 6.1.1 that focuses on identifying and assessing sustainability risks in your supply chain. That's the planning phase. It's vital for sure, but it is just the starting line. Then we level up to Clause 6.2.3. This is where the rubber meets the road. This actually mandates incorporating sustainable procurement clauses with key performance indicators and OKRs directly into your contracts. So we're moving from simply recognizing a risk to legally enforcing sustainable performance from our suppliers.
But here's the thing. So, the crucial point is, enforcement means absolutely nothing without strict accountability. Under Clause 6.3.1, you are required to regularly report to relevant stakeholders on the social, environmental, and economic impacts of those exact procurement activities. If you're going to enforce those KPIs in the contract, you have to gather the evidence and transparently share both your achievements and your challenges. No more hiding behind vague sustainability pledges, okay?
All right, our final section, Part 4, Moving Concept to Action.
So, we've looked at the theory, the EVMS loop, and the specific procurement clauses. Let's move to and see how this builds a clear progression to implement this structured harmony starting, tomorrow morning. Step 1. Assess your impacts using the P5 analysis. Basically, stop flying blind and get the data. Step 2, ensure transparent environmental, social, and governance disclosures. Communicate openly about your progress, and yes, your setbacks too. And step 3, push beyond just being neutral and strive for net positive outcomes. Actually, scratch that. This isn't just about doing less harm. It's about actively working to restore degraded social and natural systems.
Which brings us perfectly to Unit 2 of the standard, Living Systems Stewardship. The standard explicitly states that we must move beyond traditional approaches. It defines exactly what is necessary to manage natural resources responsibly, reduce pollution, and actually prioritize biodiversity. Traditional project management, just watching the clock and the budget, it simply isn't enough anymore. As global resources deplete and what stakeholders demand shifts dramatically, embedding sustainability isn't just some nice PR exercise, it is an absolute survival requirement for modern business. Because think about it, if your project degrades the very environment it relies on, it ultimately sets itself up for failure.
I want to wrap up our explainer today with this absolutely profound definition from Unit 8 of the standard. Regenerative design is development in the service of life. Wow. It is a forward-thinking approach that doesn't just try to mitigate damage, but actively seeks to enhance and regenerate the social, ecological, and economic systems that we all rely on. It forces us to rethink literally everything we build and everything we manage. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to carry with you today. How will your very next project be in the service of life?